Okay, I know this is a very late live stream. It was either because I was trying to get as many injury updates as I possibly could for you, so we have the latest news, or two, because my house still doesn't have internet, so now I'm at my second Airbnb back-to-back day so I can bring you this live stream. So if that doesn't warrant a like, I don't know what does. But let's go ahead. Let's dive into this. So first injury update that we have actually broke about an hour ago. Great news. Jordan Love, no torn ACL, right? That was the main concern that a lot of fantasy doctors had, looking at his knee, kind of shifted in a weird way last night. Video was gross, but looks like everything's intact, just going to be a sprain in the MCL. So right now, a lot of people are saying that Jordan Love's going to be missing about a month of the season. I know you have anywhere from, say, people screaming, oh, this is going to be a 1 week ordeal, or people saying, hey, this is going to linger on for quite some time. I don't know. What I would say is, don't plan on starting Jordan Love anytime soon. Don't plan on starting Jaden Reed anytime soon. I think you're kind of hoping you get Tannehill. It may be Willis. I don't know. I don't care. You don't start any Packers unless Jordan Love's under center outside of Josh Jacobs, but you are lowering your expectations. And yes, we will talk about T. Higgins and Jamar Chase in just 1 second. I have Jamar Chase as well, and I'm a little bit worried. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's look at our second update. This one, Russell Wilson not expected to play week 1. So what I did is in my league, I waited to the last 2 rounds to grab quarterback. I have Brock Purdy and Caleb Williams, and I sprinted over to the waiver wire. I snagged Justin Fields off waivers, and I am starting Justin Fields week 1. Now, I have gotten so much hate for years now saying that Justin Fields is a bad real-life quarterback. I still stand by that. But you go back 2 years ago, Justin Fields was the top 5 quarterback in fantasy, only behind Allen, Hurts, Mahomes, and he was tied with Lamar as that 4th option. And I think Burrow actually finished ahead of him. So tied for the 5th option with Lamar Jackson, because you just have an insane amount of rushing upside with Justin Fields. So I think Fields is a viable streamer. I am playing him this week. Now, let's move over to our next one. Tyler Lockett obviously has been dealing with injuries for quite some time. It's caused him to fall a decent amount in Underdog Best Ball drafts near the end of the year. In your regular redraft league, don't stress about it. If you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, if you think that you need to put Tyler Lockett in your starting lineup, I don't know what you're smoking. It's a spot where it probably is not going to be a shootout going up against the Denver Broncos. He's been banged up. A lot of people think it's JSN's season. So, yeah, for sure, do not be playing Tyler Lockett this week. Now, Puka Nacua, not listed on the injury report. Super safe to play Puka. This should be one of the highest scoring games of the week. And actually, if you head over to what you have on Underdog Fantasy right now with some of these projections for these guys that we're going to talk about, Puka is extremely high here. I mean, right now, the expectations are 73.5 receiving yards, higher or lower, which is one of the highest marks of the week. So I think even if you were maybe a little concerned with Puka and you drafted him behind Garrett Wilson because of this knee injury, for week 1, don't stress. Great matchup, super high projection. You go ahead and you play him. Christian McCaffrey, this happened right before we started streaming. And this is difficult because CMC plays on Monday night. It's listed as questionable. All right. Everything yesterday pointed towards Christian McCaffrey playing on Monday. It is such a tough spot. If this, let's all be on the same page though, right? If McCaffrey plays, you're putting him in your lineup. Like there's nothing that you can do there. You can't say, oh my gosh, maybe he has 80% of the backfield instead of 90%. It doesn't freaking matter. He's in your lineup. But if you don't have a pivot option that you can go to on Monday night where, say, somebody else picked up Jordan Mason and you're sitting here thinking that McCaffrey may miss, and you're like, oh my gosh, do I end up just going through and playing Najee Harris? It's really tough. I think you need the context of your situation that you're in to make that call. I would say more likely than not, McCaffrey is playing based off everything that I've read. Also, if you look at the Christian McCaffrey pick'ems on Underdog at the moment, they still do have McCaffrey for an extremely high total yardage mark. They have McCaffrey at 115.5 total yards, higher or lower. I am actually going to be going with a lower than 115.5 total yards on McCaffrey due to this injury. I'm actually going to make a pick'em slip real quick. We're going to get that Jahmyr Gibbs special pick'em more than less than half total yard if you use the Vulture insurance. but I'm actually going to use the Vulture promo that Underdog has right now with Jahmyr Gibbs. We'll talk about him in just 1 second. I'm actually going to take Jahmyr Gibbs to score a rushing touchdown, because if he gets vultured from David Montgomery, this actually does get you a refund with the promo that Underdog's running. I would just highly recommend taking advantage as many Underdog promos as you possibly can. So we're going to go for fewer than 115.5 total yards for CMC. We're going to take Gibbs to have the rushing touchdown as well. Like I said, Vulture production, if it goes to David Montgomery, it doesn't matter. We're still good. And we'll go $10 to win 38 on that, which I wouldn't be super happy about it if it wasn't for the Vulture protection. But Vulture protection promo, I think it makes an absolute no-brainer. And like I said, I highly recommend you taking advantage of all the promos that they have on Underdog right now. Right now in the lobby, if you took advantage of the Vulture thing yesterday, you have more than less than half a total yard for CMC. I'm sorry, for Jahmyr Gibbs. You also have more than less than half a total yard for Christian McCaffrey right now if you use code FLOCK. There's also a 20% profit boost token, which if I would have known that, I would have just thrown it on that pick'em. It looks like I'm going to have to do another so I can take advantage of that. And if you use code FLOCK, you're also going to be getting a Dak Prescott special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard for the Dallas Cowboys game, a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. And I will also get you a free team review over there on flogfantasy.com from yours truly. I'll break down your team for you in a live stream. All you have to do is make sure you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. Make that $10 deposit. Highly recommend taking advantage of the promotions they have right now. And then having an account on flogfantasy.com set up with the same email address. It can be a free account on flogfantasy.com as well. But let's move back over to our next situation. And as I pull this up, it's going to take me 1 second. So I'll remind you that that link's in the description, comment section, and live chat. All right, but I think we are back. Excuse that little detour. With Jamar Chase. So I am starting Jamar Chase in the Flock League, or at least I'm planning on it. What's good is this is going to be an early game, right? So if Chase is out, I can very easily pivot over to Terry McLaurin. For me, no big deal. For you, maybe it's a little bit of a tougher spot. But they just added a quote-unquote illness to Jamar Chase for his injury designation for week 1. I can't read. I'm sorry. It says Chase was already listed as questionable due to his offseason hold-in as he sought a new contract. With an update placed on that designation today that added an illness, it certainly appears as if Chase is legitimately questionable for the team's week 1 contest against the Patriots. Head coach Zach Taylor has already stated that the alpha wide receiver would be limited even if he did suit up, which could place the team in an uncomfortable territory considering T. Higgins is listed as doubtful with a hamstring injury that popped up on Thursday. Slot wide receiver, I can't say his name, I've been told to pronounce him as Yoshi, is unlikely to see his role grow in the absence of the top 2 receivers. Another player you can be looking at is Jermaine Burton. Am I going to tell you to run to the waiver wire and pick these guys up? No, because I wouldn't be excited to play in week 1. Hell, even if they have a good week 1, if Chase is back week 2, if Higgins is back in week 2, there's no way in hell I'm playing him. So if it's not Chase, if it's not Higgins, I'm not playing a Bengals wide receiver this week. I don't care if it's a good spot or not. I think you can. I'm not playing Burrow this week either. I mean, going up against New England, there's no shootout potential. It's going to be a very low scoring, very boring game in general. But let's go over to our next spot. We already talked about Jordan Love missing a couple weeks. So DJ Chark, placed on the IR, is going to miss at least 4 games. Obviously, in your regular redraft league, this has absolutely no impact outside of maybe Ladd McConkey and Joshua Palmer. So right now, if you look at this Chargers wide receiver room, obviously no Keenan, obviously no Mike Williams. So what they decide to do is they draft Ladd McConkey at the top of the 2nd round. They sign DJ Chark. You add in, say, Quentin Johnson going into year 2, probably a bum, but we'll see. So if you have no DJ Chark, one of those additions that they had for the 2 wide receivers that are leaving, it's very easy to project out Ladd McConkey and Joshua Palmer to dominate the target share here from a very good quarterback. And we have some other injury updates with Los Angeles that we'll get to in a minute. We already talked about Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Sounds like Russ is going to travel. Fields will start. I'm putting Fields into my starting lineup. So the Panthers placed Ian Thomas on injured reserve. So the rookie tight ends in Carolina, that is a member of the University of Texas alumni, Hook 'em Horns, Jatavion Sanders. If he plays well, maybe you pick him up. Obviously, don't pick him up right now. Okay, so Justin Herbert completely removed from the injury report. I think Herbert is like a quality quarterback too that you can roster. Obviously, the situation is just a little bit tough based off the change with his wide receiver room, the change with the coaching staff, most likely going to be slowing the pace of play down, most likely going to be running the ball a little bit more. Sportsbooks are projecting out that this is a lower scoring game overall against the Raiders. So I'm not wanting to start Herbert, but I think this is just added on good news that you have for Ladd McConkey and Joshua Palmer. Noah Fant is not on the injury report. Obviously, good news for people who drafted Noah Fant in Underdog best ball drafts. Jalen Warren removed from the injury report and is going to be good to go. I'm not that excited about playing Jalen Warren, and I'm not that excited about playing Najee Harris either. Like I said, I mean, we can talk a little bit more about the Justin Fields impact here in Pittsburgh, but these rushing quarterbacks can be phenomenal themselves in fantasy because obviously Justin Fields, he's going to have so many more rushing yards than we would have for Russell Wilson. Justin Fields is going to have more rushing touchdowns if he plays through the entire year than Russell Wilson would have had. But it's not like the Pittsburgh Steelers are just going to be adding the Justin Fields rushing production and everything's going to stay the same. It's not like this offense just gets dramatically better. No, the offense could potentially get worse. But all of a sudden, the quarterback is just monopolizing more of those points, specifically in the red zone as well. So I think if you are looking at Fields taking over as the quarterback in Pittsburgh, which I want to reiterate, I am starting Justin Fields this week. So I do have high expectations from a rushing perspective, and I'm hoping he plays well. You can see already on my rankings on flockfantasy.com. I know I'm not going to be able to put the rankings out on YouTube. It takes us too long to make those tier list visuals. If you're on flockfantasy.com, pull them up there. But you'll see I dropped George Pickens down the rankings. You'll see I dropped the Pittsburgh Steelers running backs down the rankings. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers skill positional players are less exciting with Fields, even if the quarterback here is a lot more exciting. Like I said, I'm starting the guy myself. Roman Wilson is listed as out. This has literally no impact on anything other than my Underdog best ball teams where I drafted a lot of Roman Wilson in round 18. Get well soon, buddy. I'm going to need some spike weeks. All right. Jerry Jeudy removed from the injury report. It's funny as I actually saw the quote that Jerry Jeudy said, oh yeah, CeeDee Lamb's production, I'll match that. No worries. What CeeDee Lamb did last year, I'm going to put up those type of numbers. Well, high expectations, Jerry. That's what I call believing in yourself. That's what I call the power of manifesting, all right? I do it every single day. I'm going to go to bed tonight in this Airbnb and go, please, God, have my Wi-Fi back at my house tomorrow so I don't have to go to a third Airbnb to do these live streams. And we're going to manifest that my Wi-Fi will be back so I can get out of here. But Kyle Pitts is actually good to go. So obviously Kyle Pitts popped up with a hamstring earlier in the week. Almost immediately, Kyle Pitts went to Twitter and went, yo, chill. I literally missed like two plays in practice. I'm fine. So if you were planning on playing Pitts, play him. Don't panic about the hamstring. Okay. Now, we already talked about Jamar Chase's status against the Patriots. Now, here, Deepak on Twitter. This is somebody who knows what he's talking about with injuries, where clearly I don't. Couple different things. Let's talk about the DeAndre Hopkins situation. So he doesn't go in depth with it here, but I read a bunch about this Hopkins MCL. So sounds like there's a slight tear in DeAndre Hopkins' knee this season. This is something that's just not going to fix itself, right? Like this is something that DeAndre Hopkins is going to have to deal with throughout the entire year. From everything that I've read and everything that I've seen, because obviously I don't know what it means, people are saying this is going to impact him the entire season. You should see an efficiency drop, maybe an overall drop with usage. So if I'm viewing DeAndre Hopkins now, I am viewing a wide receiver that obviously is one of the best wide receivers that I've ever seen play the game. I know I'm not nearly as old as a lot of people watching this, so it's maybe embarrassing to admit, but DeAndre Hopkins, immaculate. In his prime, hard to find a better receiver. But with that being said, the man was drafted in 2013. He is going into his 12th NFL season. He is 32 years old. He is in what projects to be a bottom 5 offense in the NFL. He is now dealing with an injury that is going to linger through the entire season. He is potentially the wide receiver 2 in what projects to be a bottom 5 offense in the NFL. And if you want to run to the comment section, run to the live chat and go, oh my gosh, Mason, you clown, the Tennessee Titans are going to be way better. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Vegas sports books are. So if you think the Titans are going to be better than the 5th worst offense in the league, what are they, the 10th worst? Still probably a pretty bad offense, right? So if you could possibly, and I know it's most likely not possible, but if you could take the DeAndre Hopkins name value, pair him up with another player, go get an upgrade elsewhere, like try to package together DeAndre Hopkins and Ramondre Stevenson. And I already know you're going to run to the live chat and go, oh my gosh, Mason, my league mates would reject it. Hell, send it to them and see what happens. If you could package together like DeAndre Hopkins and Ramondre Stevenson, a running back of that class, and pair up to James Cook, Rachaad White, Kenneth Walker, Joe Mixon, anybody like that that's just in a more exciting offense than what you have in New England. If you play in a league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, I think it does make a lot of sense to just try to take any name appeal that you have for Hopkins and make the pivot. All right. But Curtis Samuel playing wide receiver turf toe data favors moderate production, blah, blah, blah. I don't really care about that. But I will say Curtis Samuel probably should be on your roster, right? I would say all these Bills wide receivers should be rostered, whether it's Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir. The guy I've been betting on all offseason, especially in underdog drafts when he's only going like 5 picks ahead of Curtis Samuel, was Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman's my bet in this offense. I think he has the highest ceiling. But every receiver here does have upside when you are attached to Josh Allen. When we know that this Bills offense projects out to be a top 5 scoring offense in the NFL, and they're going to run to the live chat and go, Mason, oh my God, they're going to be so much worse than that. I don't know. I think they're going to be probably a pretty good offense with Josh Allen. And you have so many vacated targets. A lot of those are going to go to Dalton Kincaid. I have a ton of Kincaid. But anyway, all this being said, all 3 of those Bills receivers should be rostered, but they should be on your bench week 1 until we get some clarity in this situation. Because to project out a week 1 target share for these guys, I think Mac Hollins is going to play. It's almost impossible. Like I would have no idea. Okay, let's go over. Josh Downs out. Data favors week 3 return, although week 2 possible initial dip plus re-injury risk. Okay, so looking at Josh Downs, you're not playing this guy in a league where you start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. This is another example of someone you throw on your bench. He stays on your bench until he proves otherwise. If Downs comes back in week 2, if he comes back in week 3, doesn't matter. But if he has that game where, he just had 9 targets. He just had 70 receiving yards. Then at that point, we can go ahead and we can play him the next week. Downs being out will skew things a little bit in the favor of Adonai Mitchell, in the favor of what you potentially have with Michael Pittman Jr., just raising his overall target floor, because Downs is one of these guys that, while healthy, should command a decent amount of targets, operating a little closer to line of scrimmage, where Pittman's going to be the prototypical alpha in the offense. Adonai Mitchell, more likely than not, is going to be the field stretching player. So when that underneath target is out, you could expect that those other 2 wide receivers do see an extra target or 2 in a game. Okay, let's move over. Okay, let's talk about Antonio Gibson here. I forgot about that. So Gibson may miss this week. What's nice with Gibson, obviously it's an early game, so we're going to get this clarity. And by no means would you ever consider playing Antonio Gibson. But I'm sitting here with Ramondre Stevenson. And in my league, I've told you all this, but I've been going back and forth. Ramondre Swift, Ramondre Swift, Ramondre Swift. So my thought process has been Ramondre's probably going to have a larger role in his offense, but Swift's offense is going to be a lot better. If Antonio Gibson's out, I'm going with the Ramondre Stevenson, because if Antonio Gibson's out, Ramondre Stevenson has shown the ability in the past to be used on 3rd down to catch the ball out of the backfield. So I think you can just safely raise the projection of the target volume that Ramondre Stevenson would see. So I would almost encourage y'all to do the same thing. Obviously, you're not playing Gibson regardless, but Gibson being out will actually help out Ramondre. Okay. So T. Higgins, data favors sitting 70 per blah, blah, blah. With T. Higgins listed as doubtful at the moment with a hamstring, pops up on Thursday. We have some conspiracy theories floating around in the wind that, this is convenience for Jamar Chase to be dealing with his contract situation. Jamar Chase to, all of a sudden pop up with an illness. Convenient timing. And then T. Higgins, when he is supposed to be playing under the franchise tag and dealing with his own little contract situation, obviously not getting nearly as much publicity. Higgins did just say, I'm going to play under the franchise tag, no problem. But it's a little weird timing for all this to pop up at the same time. So I'm not saying the conspiracy theory has any validity to it. I don't know if we can just look at the historical data and say, 100% T. Higgins hamstring. We need to treat this as every other situation. I probably don't plan on playing T. Higgins. If you have Higgins, I most likely look for another option here. But I don't know that means that Higgins misses week 2. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be playing. Like I just said, I went over to Underdog, and this is one of my favorite pick'ems for tomorrow. I would not have this as my favorite pick'em if it was not. I'm going to make another pick'em slip with this. if it was not protected with the vulture guarantee. We're going to go yet again with higher than half a rushing touchdown for Jahmyr Gibbs with a 1.27x multiplier, because even if David Montgomery does go ahead and Montgomery steals that rushing touchdown, you still actually get refunded that because it's vulture protected with that promo this weekend. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take that with Jahmyr Gibbs. Looking elsewhere on some potential pick'ems that I like this week, I personally stay far away from what we have with the defensive pick'ems. But I do like Josh Allen to have more than 2 passing touchdowns, and I actually like Marvin Harrison Jr. to have more than 58.5 receiving yards as well. So we're just going to go ahead and throw $10 on this, and I'm actually going to use my profit boost token as well, because then we get the 20%. And Underdog's been dropping a profit boost token like this literally every single day. The amount of pick'ems that they've been throwing out there is insane. So it's going to be $10 to win 78. And like I said, that rushing touchdown with Jahmyr Gibbs is vulture protected. So even if it goes to David Montgomery, we're still good. So I actually really do like what we have here. And like I said, highly recommend you taking advantage of all of those promos that they're doing on Underdog right now. There are just so many for NFL kickoff. But let's move this back over. Play Jahmyr Gibbs. That entire little segment was me telling you I have faith in Gibbs. I think it's a great matchup. I think he has the receiving floor. I think he has the volume. I think he has it all. But I think that should be every single player here in this video that we talked about. If I'm mistaken, please let me know real quick. Juxon says, what do you think about McCaffrey? I talked about this a little earlier on. With McCaffrey, I think he most likely plays. You have to have him in your starting lineup. If you are very worried about it, I don't mind at all going through and taking the lower than 115.5 total yards for CMC on Underdog. I actually did submit a pick'em with lower than 115.5 total yards, because if he does play, I'm worried that he's possibly a little bit limited. But even if he's a little bit limited, he's still somebody you put in your lineup. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else. Josh says Burrow is not startable. I'd probably agree based off matchup. RJ says Gesicki for the Bengals. I mean, maybe you say all the receivers being out does bump up the target volume for the tight end position here. So if you are in like a tournament and you're looking for a unique play, I do think Gesicki could have a higher ceiling than what he'd be priced at. But at the same time, I don't necessarily know if in your regular fantasy football league, I'd want to start Gesicki until we actually see what his role is week 1. I mean, if you do have both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins officially out, then I think Gesicki can definitely be a viable play. I would just feel more comfortable if we actually got to see it first. But I will be live again later tonight, actually breaking down the teams that were submitted over on flockfantasy.com and answering a bunch of questions from the site. So, of course, if you want your team broken down through flockfantasy.com, you can purchase one directly on the sites, or the cheapest way you can get one as well is go and make that $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy. Make that $10 deposit on Underdog with promo code FLOCK. You'll get my 2024 rankings, a free roster review through flockfantasy.com, a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. And only with code FLOCK are you going to additionally get that Christian McCaffrey special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard. The Jahmyr Gibbs special pick'em, more than less than half a total yards for anybody who used the vulture protection last night on Jacobs. And then also you have a Dak Prescott special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard. Never seen Underdog do this many promos before. Take advantage while you can. It is for NFL opening weekend. But thank you again, everybody. Chandler, thank you for being a member of the flock. Victor as well. And I'll be live tonight answering everybody's questions. So just make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you then.